Hi, and welcome to London Farm. Today we're going to talk about our bees, and I'm pleased to welcome our bee master. Is that the right term?
Sure. Beekeepers.
Okay. Beekeeper.
Like, not
And
sure.
this is Jane,
Hello.
and she's been doing an excellent job with our bees. And this is the first in, I hope, many videos we're going to do on them. And Jane's going to walk us through kind of normal maintenance type activities.
Mm-hmm.
And take it away.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Jane. I'm the beekeeper for this little apiary we have here at the London Heritage Farm. And today I'm doing sort of regular hive inspection, but I'm also perhaps going to harvest some honey if the bees have enough to harvest. So they were bringing in some honey last time. There's a lot of blackberry that just finished blooming. It's actually fruiting out now. That's one of our major honey sources of this area. So I'm going to see if there's enough to harvest. I definitely don't want to take all their honey. We just take what is excess for them because honey is the bees' winter food. So it's really important that we leave them enough honey to make it through the fall and winter. And believe it or not, we're actually going into sort of low resource time right now. It's called a dearth, which means there's actually not a lot of nectar around. There's a lot of fruit, there's a lot of things for us humans to eat, but in terms of flowers, there's a lot less than there is in the spring. So definitely want to make sure they have enough food. So I'll assess that, just make sure there's a queen in there. I'll make sure she's laying really nicely. And yeah, just making sure the bees are all healthy and are ready to, enjoy the rest of their summer. So yeah, what I'm doing now is I'm lighting the smoker. The smoker is one of the ways, I guess, we sort of calm the bees down when we go into a hive. What it does is it actually sort of manipulates the hive's natural instinct when it comes to forest fires. So the smell of the burning burlap will trigger the bees to think there's a fire nearby, which sounds stressful, but what it actually does is it incentivizes them to go into the hive and eat their honey. So they're sort of distracted. They're not gonna notice me as much, and their bellies will also be full of honey, so it makes them a little happier. You know, they're not gonna be hangry. They're gonna be really gentle. And the little fun niche fact too is when a bee's honey, when their crop is full of honey, it's actually a little bit harder for them to bend their abdomen. So stinging is it's slightly less chance that they'll sting. It's not always the case. I do get stung, but it just sort of reduces the chances, and it makes the process a little bit easier for both the bees and myself. The other thing it does is it does slightly disrupt their communication ability. Bees communicate predominantly through scent and pheromone. So when there's smoke in the hive, it actually makes it harder for them to transmute the stress pheromone. So if one bee's feeling stressed from me being in the hive, it's going to be harder for her to shout to her other sisters being like, hey, I'm stressed, there's someone opening it up. They won't be able to hear it per se, or smell it, I guess, in their case. So that's one of the reasons that we use smoke, and it is also the reason why I don't want to use too much smoke. Obviously, I don't want to make the bees think that there's a huge fire coming and that they're not going to make it out. So it is definitely a careful balance of smoking them just enough to keep them a little distracted, but not enough to really stress them out. So it's a bit of a gentle balance. And I am sterilizing my hive tool just because when we go into a hive, it's almost like you're performing surgery on a body. A beehive is a superorganism, so the organism itself is the hive. You can think of each honeybee as almost like a cell within the superorganism, and the queen bee is like the heartbeat of the hive. But that being said, it's a very intimate process to go into a hive, and so I want to make sure that I'm using a clean and sterile tool. Because I'm going to go into all 5 hives today. And if this hive has a disease, I don't want to transmute it between the other hives. So I'll make sure that I have a sterilized tool by putting this little metal hive tool in the flames for a couple minutes, just to help reduce transmission. Bees, when they're neighbors, they do tend to like transmit diseases amongst each other when they're close, when they're neighbors. But I'll try my best to sort of reduce any transmission if I can control that. Nice, we got a good smoke going. I'm gonna start off without a veil. I do like to try and read the I guess temperament of the hive, if you will. And sort of just see how they are. They'll let me know if they don't want me to be there. They're pretty good at communicating. So what am I gonna do? Yeah, I'll put this box here. So up here we have the honey super, where I was trying to get them to store their honey by excluding the queen to the bottom box. I'll start by removing the honey super, and then I'm gonna check on the queen first before I see what type of honey they have up here. Nice. So this funny metal grill thing on top is called a queen excluder. So what it does is it's actually very, very specifically measured to make sure that the worker bees can get through it, but the queen bee can't, because the queen bee has a very large abdomen because she's storing up basically 5 years worth of sperm in her spermatheca. So she's very large compared to the worker bees. So the queen can't get through this queen excluder, and it means she's not going to lay in the honey super because we don't really want eggs in our honey. So this makes sure she stays in the brood box, but the worker bees who are smaller can get through. So it's very specifically measured, and it's very, important piece of equipment. So I'll take that off. And so my goal right now is, it's always good to have a goal when you're going into beehive. Like I said, it's a pretty intimate process, and I don't really want to disturb the bees if I don't have to. So my goal today is to make sure the queen is still laying, that the brood is healthy, and that they have enough resources to get through the next few weeks. So what I'm going to do first is just have a look at their 2 outside frames, which is where a lot of their brood resources are. And by resources, I'm talking about nectar, honey, and pollen. So you can say they have about half a frame of honey here. Not a ton, but it's a great start. One of the benefits of having honey on the outside of your box is that honey is actually really insulative for temperature as well. So it can actually help regulate the temperature of the hive by having it as your walls, the walls of the hive. So it's almost like their insulation for their home. Nice. And so this is a really nice frame of brood. And one cool thing we have here is actually, is it still happening? I saw a bee. Oh yeah. So there's a bee who's being born. Can I come closer to you guys? Is that okay? Nice. So this is a frame of brood, and we have a little birthday happening. Where is it? Right here. There's a bee who's actually ripping her way out of her brood cell. So this is a pretty special moment. Pretty much the cycle of the brood is you'll have the queen who lays an egg. The egg will hatch after a couple days. It'll stay uncapped for about 8 to 9 days, I believe, where it will get fed its special diet of basically bee bread, which is pollen and a little bit of royal jelly, but not a ton. At, I believe it's day 9, they get capped over with a thin layer of wax, and then once it's capped over with the wax, they go through a full metamorphosis, almost like a butterfly in the cocoon, and they develop into a full adult. And then they're kind of just left to birth themselves at day 21 when they're ready to emerge. So you can see she's just ripping away at the capping here. It kind of takes a while, honestly. I love watching bees birth themselves, but it's a bit of a long process. All these other bees just come along and like walk over her. As you can see, they don't even know that it's going on. And the first thing she'll do after she emerges from her cell is actually get her bearings and then turn around and clean out her own cell. So they're pretty self-sufficient babies, you know? They clean out their own cell right from the start. And they emerge as full adults, so they're pretty much ready to work right away. They spend the first few days of their life as housekeepers, looking after the cleanliness of the hive, cleaning things up. Eventually, a few days after that, they'll become nurse bees, where they feed all the larvae. They also produce royal jelly, so if they're needing to raise a new queen, they'll produce a lot of royal jelly to feed to the queen cells. Eventually, she'll go from a nurse bee to a honey producer, so she'll receive honey from forager bees and help transform nectar into honey. I believe it's usually about day 13 of her life, she'll become a wax builder for a little bit. So they have 6 wax glands along their abdomen, which excrete these little tiny sheets of wax, which they use to produce all the comb. Here she goes, she's close. She's really trying really hard. Yeah, so an architect or wax builder bee lasts for only about 3 days of her life. She'll produce the wax. And eventually, for the last about week or 2 weeks of her life, she'll be a forager bee. So foraging is really dangerous. So the oldest bees are the ones who do it. So they do almost every task in the hive before they become a forager, which is all the bees that you see actually flying around. So believe it or not, a lot of the bees in this hive can't actually fly yet. It's only about 20% of the hive that can actually fly. So the foragers go out and they collect either pollen or nectar, or they might even be looking for places. If the hive is going to swarm, they'll find places to go. So she's really taking her time. She's still not out yet. It's a long process. I was kind of hoping she would come out. But what you can see here is this right here is a newborn bee. I'm not sure if you can see it, but you can tell she's newborn because her hair is kind of matted still. She's got quite light colored hair, which will darken up with age. So it's a high chance that a lot of these capped brood cells on the periphery are going to be born either today or tomorrow even, just because the queen also lays in a spiral pattern typically. So she lays all the generations sort of next to each other. So this was like a patch of eggs that she would have laid about 20 to 21 days ago. So they're all around the same age. But it's kind of cool to see that. And now the middle of the spiral is once again filled with young brood. It's kind of hard to see because there's bees over it. But yeah, it's young brood in there and it'll go through the same process. So once these hatch out, then she'll sort of reverse the spiral and go the other way. That doesn't always happen, but typically you can expect a sort of spirally pattern. Oh, she's so close. You can see some of the other worker. Okay, now she's coming. She's got her head out. And she'll try really hard to get the rest of her body out.